Welcome to Altenew's January video hop for educators from Altenew, and the theme for this video hop is colorful creations. As you can see, I created several different cards using the same stamp that I then turned into tags from the stamp that I did on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, and I'll show you what I did. So here are the cards, and I'll showcase them for you using the same stamp and a variety of different Altenew supplies. This is the smallest one because I had very little cardstock left that I stamped. So this is a small square card and a smaller tag. Each of these cards will showcase a tag. This is a slightly larger one than the square one I just showed you. A typical 8.5 by 11 card, another 8.5 by 11 from 11 piece of paper, a larger tag, and one more tag. So using tags is a great way to get a point of interest on your card. Let me tell you a little bit about this particular stamp. I discovered this stamp in my collection, and I had this stamp for a while. So when I was looking for supplies to use for this video hop, I came across this one that I had done. I had stamped it, painted it with watercolor, gave it a little shimmer spritz, added a tag, 2 tags, some washi tape, and some washi tape here. So it's called a dianthus, which is related to a carnation. It's a slightly smaller flower, still has those ruffly petals, and it's used for many different occasions. So it is related to the carnation, but a slightly smaller version. Let me tell you what I did and the supplies that I used for my 6 cards. Here's the stamp that I used in my collection. It's very well loved. But it's part of the collection called Paint a Flower Modern Pink Dianthus. And it includes some wonderful statements that I used on that other card. But this was the stamp that I used, and I stamped it multiple times on a white piece of cardstock using Altenew's Jet Black ink. So I stamped it, moved it around, and for those little lines that didn't come out quite the way you wanted it, I used a black fine tip pen, and that really helped for me to kind of like etch in those little lines that didn't quite get the stamp image that I wanted, but using one of these pens did the trick. Let me talk to you about my supplies too. I used an embossing folder to add visual interest to the background. And this is called organic linen. So I did a white piece of paper, trimmed it down to the size that I wanted, ran it through my machine, and then I colored the edges with blue, different shades of blue ink with a blending brush. These came in very handy. These are from Altenew as well. So that gave the background some interest. So that was helpful too. I still had some space, so I used this stencil. It's called halftone stencil. You can see that I used it a lot. I like it because it has a gradient of different holes. So if you wanted some larger holes on the back of your project or smaller ones, that's what I used for the background as well with that blue ink. So that was very helpful. Here's the stamp set that I used. This is one of my go-to stamp sets. It's called Elegant Sayings. And this is the die set. This is also the coordinating stamps. So there's lots of them on there. And the thing that makes this unique is that the die matches the sentiments. And that's what I used for all of the cards. And when I was stamping them and cutting them out, sometimes I cut multiple white pieces of paper to add a little visual interest to the card. So that worked out really well too. You might be asking about the tags. Tags are an important part of this project, but you can make your own if you don't have dies. And all you do is cut a strip of paper, depending on the size that you want. Cut off the corners, punch a hole in the middle, and you've got a tag. And that's what I did for my cards. As I started to move things around, I colored my flowers. I positioned the die where I wanted it to get the most floral image, if you will. This one's a little smaller, but I just kept cutting. So as I was cutting, I focused more and more about how I can get as much as I could on my card. And here's where those dots came in. I stenciled those corners where it had no stamped image. I then used my blue blending brush to add those colors and those shading on each of those spots on my card. Here's another one from the piece of paper that I stamped and colored. And here's those word tags again. This time I was able to cut a die from the tag that was, the flower was centered at the bottom, and I put the sentiment at the top. So now I was getting down to smaller pieces of paper because I didn't have a lot left. And so this was a smaller tag. I think this one is related to this one. So that works out okay. And then the last one, I was able to eke out one more tag. And this is a small square tag. So that worked out pretty well as well. Okay. So when you're making your cards, take your stamp, stamp it on a piece of white cardstock, stamp it as many times as you can, rotating that paper around, then deciding what sections you want to make for your tags. You can color them before you cut them. That's up to you. I did a little bit of both. So now when you think about dianthus, you think about carnations, and this set that might be one of your new favorite sets. But you can use the same technique for any of your cards that you use, especially when you want to make multiples. So let's take a look at my supplies. I have the stamp. I have a stencil. I have the embossing folder. I have inks, stamps, and die cuts. Blending brushes really came in handy. A fine tip marker and coordinating ink cubes. So when you think about, gee, I want to make some cards, stamp them multiple times and you'll be amazed at how they look when you cut them into a tag or even a different shape. But I really like the way this one highlights the flowers and where you start to position them on your cards as well. All of this information and the supplies will be on my blog and some information on Instagram. Take a look at some of the other uploads for my fellow educators and what they designed for their carnation look. So hop along, leave a comment on this webpage or video and some of the others from the other educators, and you will be amazed at some of the beautiful creations that everybody makes. So again, stop, leave a comment, and you might be able to be eligible for some of the new random drawings from Altenew. Thank you and happy stamping.